Welcome, everyone, to our podcast, Davidov Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davidov, along with Ethan Davidov. Today, we've got on the show Michael Smith. He's an attorney from Savannah, Georgia, and I've known Mike for a long time. Mike, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to join you guys on the podcast today. As you said, I'm an estate planning attorney in Savannah, Georgia. I've been practicing law for, unfortunately, a really long time now. I'm getting older, but since '96, so good long while. And one of the interesting things about my background is before I became an estate planner, I did a lot of different things, and so I had exposure to a lot of different areas of law. I did real estate work. I did collections for a while. So when people need asset protection, I have a sort of unique insight into that.
From the other side of it.
Yeah, definitely from that other side. So those experiences, really helped me as I transitioned into estate planning. And that was 2006 is when I started my firm.
I think that's when I met you for the first time.
Yeah, I think we met some kind of conference or something out in San Diego, maybe. But yeah, so 2006, really at that point focused on just estate planning. And, my very background has been of great benefit to me and my clients in that regard. So, yeah.
Good. And now you've been focused on estate planning work exclusively for all this time.
That's right. So last 18 years, focused exclusively on estate planning. I mean, our firm, my partner does some elder law work. I know enough to be dangerous, but kind of leave most of that to him. And of course, as most estate planning lawyers, we do probate work and trust administration and, all those sorts of ancillary things.
Okay. And do you get a chance to work with high net worth clients as well?
Yeah. So, we've done a lot of work over the years with high net worth clients. And I mean, I think, defining what's high net worth is kind of important. And in our, I live in a smaller community. We have about 300,000 people in our metropolitan statistical area. So not a huge city. So that means, maybe we don't have as many high net worth folks as you might see in other places, but, we've really developed a reputation for working with, high net worth clients. So over the years, I see a lot of times helping folks who had some sort of liquidation event. So they've sold a business or they've got an inheritance, those sorts of things. So that's a lot of, what I've done over the years.
Wonderful. I want to dig a little bit more into the kind of work that you're doing, and in particular, sort of the landscape today in the estate planning area, particularly in the high net worth area, and what kind of tools you're helping your clients put together. I know that we're both attorneys, and so let me say this, that none of this on a podcast should be construed as legal advice for anybody. You should retain your own private attorney and form that relationship with them so that they can advise you appropriately based on your unique circumstances. But with that, let me go on and ask, can you describe to us some of the estate planning tools that perhaps you might use? Like when a family comes to you, can you walk us through the process of how you meet them? How do you take them through the process of getting their estate plan done?
Yeah. So, our process starts with, an initial meeting that we call a discovery and fit meeting. And I think it's really important to, in that initial phase to really get to know and understand, what the client's trying to accomplish. And, for them to get a chance to know us as well, so we can determine, are we a good fit to work together? So a lot of that conversation is around kind of, what do you want to accomplish? Who are, who's in your family? Who are the important people? Who are the, sort of players in your estate plan, if you will? And then once we've once we've had that conversation, we've gotten a good sense of, what the client's trying to accomplish, and we know that we can help them. Then we'll kind of, say, well, here's what we think on a high level we ought to do. Most of our engagements are flat fee. We don't bill by the hour. So we'll generally, kind of come up with a general recommendation and a flat fee for the design and implementation of that plan. And then the next phase of it is the design meeting. And so that's where we really get into all the nitty gritty. So we're gathering a bunch of information about the assets. If somebody owns a business, or they have property that's in an LLC, or reviewing all of the documentation around that, to make sure it's all right, first of all. And then, as the way that somebody's operating agreement is drafted can impact, what you can do with the assets, and, knowing, about what their basis is, and, all that information is really important in, trying to design the plan to accomplish what it is they want to accomplish. So once we gather that information, then we will create a plan. If it's a high net worth client, a lot of times what we'll do is we will say, high net worth clients oftentimes have more complicated situations. So it takes a little bit more time. So we typically will charge for the planning phase a flat fee to do that. And we'll create a proposed plan for them, basically, after we have all the information. And then we sit down in a meeting, we'll review that together. We'll say, well, you told me you wanted to accomplish X, Y, and Z here, and sometimes we'll give multiple options. We'll say, well, we can do this, this, or this. Here's the pros and cons of each of these approaches. Here's, if they say, well, we're trying to save estate taxes, for example, then, we'll give them a projection of what we think, their estate tax might be, based on their life expectancy and the assumed, growth of their assets. And then we'll say, hey, here's how we would zero that out. You can do all of this.
You can do that.
I mean, sometimes.
People don't know that. And so when these clients are coming to you, what are you hearing some of the common issues that they're looking to solve for? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always some estate tax underpinning, I think, for high net worth folks. They're always, that may be what gets them to the table. There also can be business succession issues. So, I've had a number of clients who, either wanted to transition to one of their children, or maybe they didn't want to transition to a child. And how does that work? And how can we structure things in a way to allow them to transition that business? Sometimes it's about, trying to avoid, income taxes, if there are ways we can do that. So, and then there's also sometimes an asset protection sort of underlayment, if you will, where, clients have a concern that, hey, I mean, people are going to know, it's not that hard to find out nowadays. People are probably going to know I have some money. I don't, if I'm a target for, lawsuits, I want to make sure that my estate is protected. So there may be some asset protection aspects of it as well.
Okay. I want to dive in on a couple of things that you said. You talked about estate taxes. Can you describe to us a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah. So, we've watched the estate tax exemption really go up over the years, which has changed kind of the way that, you do planning. I mean, the reality is, like, most people don't have an estate tax issue nowadays. So for the vast majority of our clients, we're doing fairly basic things if they're getting close to the estate tax, to take care of that. And, one thing that has come up a lot recently with clients is that, as you are aware, the estate tax exemption is going to sunset next year if, Congress and the president don't do something. Mm-hmm. And so, we're going to see the estate tax exemption cut in half. So we've been doing a lot. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. Does Georgia have an estate tax?
No, we
Okay,
do
and
not. We
that's
don't have.
interesting.
Yeah.
In New York, we do, and it's about half of the federal estate tax exemption. So we get hit with estate taxes probably a lot earlier in
mm,
comparison.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Additionally, so how has the state tax exemption changed from when you guys started until now? I
Ooh,
remember we were
that's a
talking
great
about this
question.
quite a
You're
few days
dating us a
back.
little bit, but Mike, you take that question.
Yeah, I think when we got started, it was a million. It might have been 675.
Yeah.
And then it's climbed over the years, and there've been, we did away with the estate tax for 1 year, and and then it came back. Um, and then I think it's 2017 when we got the current regime scheme in place.
Right.
And the estate tax exemption is currently 13.61. We
For the federal.
For the federal, yeah. And I mean, in my context, I always only think about the federal because we don't have a state or inheritance tax in Georgia. So, but one of the things that also happened with the estate tax over the years is that we got portability. So, when your dad and I first started doing estate planning work, there wasn't portability of the exemption, and so it was really important that you did A/B planning and or had disclaimer trust or whatever approach you wanted to take, but that you
Do you mind
addressed.
just explaining portability a little bit more?
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't know.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the concept is that if when one spouse dies, if you don't need the estate tax exemption, when the second spouse dies, you can use that unused exemption of the first spouse to die. I know there's a lot of language around that, but the deceased spouse unused exemption can be used by the surviving spouse upon their death, or their family can use it upon their death. So it effectively allows you twice the amount of exemption for a family, for married couples, on the federal side. And that's a newer provision that came into place. I can't remember the exact, that might've been in 2010, maybe. I don't remember exactly. But that has been a change in the estate tax that's really affected the way that we approach planning, since that time.
So talk to us about what a typical plan for many of the clients might look like when they come in with these questions and these issues, and they want to get their estate plan done. What kind of things are you developing for them?
So I look at planning for high net worth folks as I want to create a modular system, if you will.
Yeah,
so,
talk to us about some of the basics, and then we can talk about some of the advanced.
Yeah, so the base level for almost every client we work with is a revocable living trust.
Okay, talk a little bit more about that. What is that? So that our listeners could better understand.
Right. A revocable living trust is just I think of it as a replacement for a will plan, and it has certain additional benefits that a will just can't provide. The big thing that everybody talks about with respect to revocable living trust is it avoids probate, and that Georgia is thought of as a friendly probate state. And so for many years, I was kind of swimming against the tide, but we've seen recently, we've had some really bad probate judges in Georgia who've caused like significant issues for families. And so now everybody is joining me in recommending revocable living trust to their clients. So, the great thing about a revocable living trust is, you can change it anytime you want to. So, if you name your brother as the trustee and now he's not, able to do that, it's simple to make a change to that. And the other big benefit, I think, to planning with a revocable trust is that it covers incapacity. And there are other documents that address that, like powers of attorney, et cetera. But from a legal standpoint, I see gaps with those types of documents. I've had situations where banks or financial institutions wouldn't accept a power of attorney I didn't do the drafting on these plans.
I have one now, and it's frustrating to have to go to a bank. I'll share with you this quick story. I had drafted an estate plan for a client. I'd worked with their family. It's now the second generation. The client had a health issue, was unable to go, and I'm delivering the power of attorney to the banker, and it's the manager of the branch, and she looks at the document and says, "Oh, it doesn't look like the power of attorney that we have." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Oh, ours is from 2021, which is when the New York power of attorney law changed." And I said, "Well, this is the statutory form from before then. It works." And she said, "Well, I have to send it to our legal department." And so this whole thing takes time, and there's a back and forth with it. If there was a trust in place, it would have been a lot easier to address that than to deal with it in this way.
I remember going with you to a bank a few years back when this was happening, and it didn't take a few weeks or something for them to get.
Sometimes these things take a long time, and it's at a time when somebody is sick, and you need to get access to the money to make life happen for them.
Precisely.
You were saying,
I mean, that's just the kind of thing that you don't want to face when you're in a crisis. It's like, oh, one more thing. I'm trying to take care of my loved one that's sick or had some sort of issue, and now I've got one more thing I got to deal with. So that's the great thing about trust is it's got legal title to the assets, so the trustee can take full control. You don't have to get permission from anybody. That is a huge benefit to trust. I feel like that benefit is maybe not as well known or as well emphasized as much as the avoidance of probate, but I think that's a huge benefit.
Probably because not everybody gets to be incapacitated, but everybody eventually dies. And so that's a reality of things. And so we see that, and you could see the reality of avoiding probate. And that probably impacts many more people than having incapacity avoidance. But it's definitely an important part of the plan. Yeah,
for sure. So, as I said, the revocable trust is kind of the base level that we use with. And I think we probably pretty well explained how that works. I mean, I think of this is a simple way I explain it. I think of a revocable living trust as a bucket, and you put all your assets into the bucket, and as long as you're alive and you're competent, you're holding the handle to the bucket. So you have control of everything. And if you become incapacitated or when you die, you just hand that bucket to the person, your backup that you've already named in the documents, and they take over the bucket and follow your instructions on how to distribute or manage those assets.
I love that. That is something that I'm going to steal. I call it the treasure box. I don't call it the bucket because it's people's treasure. That's what they put their money into.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Talk to us a little bit about some of the other planning tools. You were talking about succession planning with, so people that own businesses, what kind of challenges are you seeing them face when it comes to estate planning?
Yeah. So, deciding what to do with the business is a big challenge. So, I think sometimes I have to convince people that their business has a value. A lot of times people think, well, it's just me, and when I die, it'll just go away. And we had a client years ago who, this is strange. He owned an online business that was doing 7 figures in revenue. He was the sole employee. The business sold door hardware, so like locks and doorknobs and all that kind of stuff.
So sometimes it's the least sophisticated businesses that do the best.
The least exciting.
I mean, he's operating it out of his house, no employees, but no overhead. So it was great business. And he had an LLC, but didn't have an operating agreement. There was no one named to take over. And so that asset wound up in probate. And it took months and months and months to get anybody appointed. And by that time, the business had basically died. It was just a list of names basically at that point. So that family went from having a 7-figure, business that they could have liquidated to, something that was worth, $50,000 in the end. So planning around, like, what do you want to happen with your business? And they're different choices. Some people say, I just want to wind it down. That's okay. So let's figure out what's the best way to do that. Is there any way to, move some of that capital that you've developed in your business out into your personal assets? And, or if you want it to continue, then how do you see that happening? Who do you want your successor to be? How do you want them to take control of the business? I had another client that owned a construction company, and he was adamant that he wanted his son to buy the company. He did not want to give it to him. He was going to sell it to him. And we had a number of meetings with him and his wife, who was a second wife, and CPA. We came up with a really good plan for how to transition it. And then he didn't want to have the conversation with his son. And
it's an important conversation. I know that we've talked about these kinds of things over time.
It's tough.
Ethan is pursuing that same kind of law, financial planning kind of background that I have. And we've certainly been talking about, how do we transition down the road?
Yeah.
In that way. So it's an important conversation.
It's super important. And in this case, he ended up, developing a really aggressive form of cancer. Wow. And before he could do anything, he passed away. And then the son exerted pressure on his stepmom, and she did sell it to him, but for way less than what it was worth and what the intention, was of my client. So those are important conversations. So those are the kinds of things that we get into with clients. And then, we also have clients who have gone through a liquidation event. So, I had one client whose business really took off during COVID, which is weird.
Interesting.
But
what kind of a business was it?
Yeah. So he
selling masks or something else?
No,
face masks.
It's even better. They produced robots that debone chickens. And
interesting.
I don't know if you remember, but one of the problems during COVID with meat was that all the workers in these meat packing plants were standing right next to each other, so they would get sick, and then the meat packing plants closed down.
Yeah.
So anyway, he did really, really well, and his company was acquired. And so it was a private equity deal, and, there's all the complications around that. And luckily, that's not my bailiwick, but, he had M&A attorneys help him with that. But then the question was, like, how do we structure this in a way that I can protect this for my kids going forward, and I can, get some asset protection and et cetera. So in that case, we used a sale to an intentionally defective grantor trust. And we used a Nevada trust to get some additional asset protection. So those are the kinds of things that come up. I had another client who was HVAC, owned an HVAC company, another private equity is really going into some of these areas and snatching up companies. So he got this fantastic valuation and, became basically an overnight, like, not just millionaire, but a lot of more zeros. And so in his case, he had a son that was in the business. So we helped him to transition a portion of the business before the liquidation event to his son. We set up a beneficiary defective inheritors trust for his other kids and the son. We set up a Nevada trust for him for asset protection purposes. So, those are the kinds of strategies that we're employing for our clients.
So it's a multifaceted approach to planning. It's not just solving for one issue. You're looking at asset protection. You're looking at business succession. You're looking at the tax situation. You're looking at their money needs. as a family and all the dynamics that come into it. Sounds a little bit like you're a psychiatrist, I would say.
Yeah,
in some ways.
Yeah, you know how it is. Some days it's like that, and it sometimes it's making people face things they don't necessarily want to face. We sit around and I forget sometimes that like I talk about death a lot. And so so some of the emotional content is just is kind of gone for me, so I forget sometimes when I talk to clients, there might be feelings around that, but that's what it's all about, is finding out, what that client's particular needs are and what their desires are, and then helping them to design and implement a plan that effectuates those, needs and desires.
So, as this psychiatrist, how do you help your clients balance tax minimization with other estate planning tools?
Tax, and I mean, there's a bunch of different types of tax involved in what we do. So, estate tax, we've kind of talked about that. Sometimes capital gains tax is a part of the conversation. If we have a client with a highly appreciated asset, how can we, if we want to get that out of the estate, but, not trigger a capital gain, like how can we do that? And then, with income taxes, it's one of those things you always have to consider and discuss with the client so they understand, what the ramifications are. I have a saying that I stole from somebody. I don't know who it was, but don't let the tax tail wag the dog.
Okay.
Yeah. And that basically, encapsulates sort of the way I think about taxes, which is it's important. You should consider it. You want that to be part of the discussion, but it shouldn't necessarily be the driver. I think it's more about like, what do you want for your family? How do you want these assets that you're leaving to benefit them in the future? And that sometimes overrides the tax considerations.
Are there some clients that are looking to protect their beneficiaries? How is there some ways that you've put together to help them do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times the concern is, well, I like my son-in-law or my daughter-in-law, but, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I don't want them to, walk away with my assets. So we have a pretty, almost every client we create for them divorce protection trusts for their children.
Okay.
And it's a pretty simple, it sets that up as a separate asset so that if they are divorced in the future, it's not a marital asset. It's easy. And, in Georgia, an inheritance is not technically subject to a property division. But what happens is, let's say that you inherit the beach house from mom and dad, and then over the years you spend, marital assets to improve it. You repair the roof, whatever. And, down the road, it becomes very difficult to identify that as a completely separate asset. So by keeping that asset in a trust, it's clearly identifiable as a separate asset. And so we can protect the assets from a divorcing spouse in that way. And then I generally have the clients will want to have the ability for the beneficiary to withdraw the money from that trust if they want to. So that they're still, they're in control. They can make that decision if they feel like it's unimportant, but it's there to protect them if needed.
Cool. Sounds like a neat way to help clients. I know that we utilize that.
Is Georgia a community property state or?
No, Georgia is a common law state, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Tell us about a little bit about your family. I know that before we started rolling the tape here, we were talking about it, but I know that you're involved with your kids quite a bit in sports, and
yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I have three boys. I got two of them in college, one of them's in high school, and they've always been athletes. They, big time soccer players, and we, spent a lot of time and energy and money over the years on their soccer careers. But my two oldest ones are playing college soccer now, which is what they wanted to do. So that's great. And then,
Right.
my
You used to
younger,
coach them, from what I understand.
yeah. So I was, I guess I technically still am a licensed, soccer coach, U.S. Soccer Federation licensed coach.
Nice.
And I spent, I don't know, probably about 15 years driving to soccer practice every couple of days and, coaching kids. And it was a ton of fun.
Wonderful. And what do you enjoy doing for fun? When
Well,
you're not busy, I know it's hard to do when you've got a law career and a
yeah.
busy office, but what do you do when you're outside of the office?
Well, I'm a runner. So I run ultra marathons.
Mike, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
How many have you done?
Gosh, we're probably somewhere around 10 now. My favorite are 100-mile races. So I've completed one 100-mile race.
Wow.
I had
Wait. I'm sorry. That's all in one run?
That's right. So
Oh my
it was,
God.
22 hours.
That's incredible. Where was this?
In Virginia, there's a little town, Damascus, Virginia, and there's a trail there that the race was on. And then I've attempted another one that I had to drop out at mile 75 because I felt I was sick. I was just stomach was bad. But then I've run a lot of 50K and 50-mile races. Like I'm running one on Saturday, a couple of days from now. I'm running a 50K race, and those are that's like 5 or 6 hours. So.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot of respect for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that a 5K is about my max. So that's wonderful. Where do you find the stamina to do a race like that and to go for 22 hours?
Well, I tell people it's all mental. You get to a point where the physical part of it doesn't matter that much. So, if you're running a 5K, you're trying to run as fast as you can. And so, you're pushing yourself as hard as you can. Well, when you run 100 miles, you're not operating at that level. You're not trying to run as fast as you can. So it becomes mental. And, what happens is after hours of running, it becomes pretty painful.
Yeah.
And so you just, you have to keep yourself going, when that pain sets in and just push through it. So you have to kind of turn off that part of your brain that wants you to stop,
I wanted to ask you also, in terms of your practice of over all of these years that you've worked with clients and you're seeing who's gotten to a significant amount of wealth, who hasn't. I know in my practice, I started seeing some commonalities. Have you noticed that in your practice? What have those people that have accumulated a lot of wealth, what have they done that perhaps others haven't? Maybe some key takeaways for our clients that are aspiring to get to that wealth.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one area where I've seen a lot of wealth accumulation is in real estate. I mean, and that's that's a common thing. The other thing I will say about people that I've run into over the years that are, extremely wealthy is there's always some element of luck involved. And I think it's important to remember that, if, we live in a great country and we have so many, we're blessed with so many benefits that come as a result of that citizenship. And if you think about even, somebody who, makes $1 billion on the internet, well, our government created the internet, built the original infrastructure for it. So we have this incredible leg up in starting businesses here. And but yet still, you think about how many people that are successful, and it's really, I mean, from a financial standpoint, hugely successful, and it's a small number of people. And I've found the commonality is there's always some element of luck that's involved. So, I had a client years ago who worked for a company that they literally go into grocery stores and help them to maximize or minimize their electricity usage by, changing the lights and doing things with the air conditioning and all this kind of. This is an engineering project essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked for this company and had some sort of falling out with them, and he left, no NDA, starts his own company. Within like 12 months, he's bought out for a huge multiple by a European, company that was looking for the technology. So, I mean, that's an example of what I'm talking about. It's not that he didn't work hard. It's not, but there was an element of luck in that. Client that owned an HVAC company I mentioned earlier. I mean, he built this great HVAC company, and then he brought his son into the business. Well, his son was really good at understanding systems and marketing and really turned that business into a machine. And then, a private equity company came in and bought them out. So I've just seen a lot of things where, there's some little element of luck there that helped that person get to where they were. But I think the area that I've seen the most wealth accumulation is in real estate. I think
about you?
Probably been your experience too, hasn't
I think for me, it's really been two things. Real estate has definitely been the biggest one. I would see clients that own lots and lots of different real estate. And over time, it's made them millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in some cases. And I've also seen other ones where it was people that just did a great job, usually business owners that have done a great job at putting away money in tax deferred type of accounts that have grown. I've had clients that own noodle shops that came out with a retirement account that had $4 or $5 million in them, things like that. So those are the two things. And I remember sitting with a mentor of mine, a client. I sat him down, this was about 20 years ago when we got started, and I said, Julius, he was a Holocaust survivor, came here and did really well in real estate. And I said, Julius, tell me a story about what I need to be doing in real estate to get to where to success and to where you are. And he said, time does its thing. And so real estate is this compounding effect of being able to leverage, being able to, right, you get money from the bank, being able to have other people pay your rent, being able to do something that builds long-term wealth for you, has all kinds of tax benefits. And so for him, what he said is time will do its thing. And I absolutely, today I understand that so much more than before. So the earlier that you start with these things, the better off you're going to be, for sure.
In addition to law, you also, those two pathways, those two avenues that you just discussed, you help clients and individuals with.
We do. And so we have we've been investing in real estate for many years now, for about 20 years, since Julius talked to us about it. And it's been really a lucrative thing for us to do. And I just recently sold a property that we've held on to for 11 years. It was a home run, and redeployed that money into a much bigger development, and we let other investors come along, so to speak, and invest alongside with us. So we allow them to participate as an investor in those in those deals. Those are called syndicated real estate transactions.
That's great
as well. Yeah, and I know that you're starting a new new venture as well. You're beginning your financial planning practice, as I understand.
That's right.
I'm getting licensed.
Good. Congratulations. Yeah. So you'll be able to integrate in a more holistic way the way that you're helping your estate planning clients.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that really pushed me to do that is that I just saw so many gaps over the years in the planning that my clients had. I mean, I was meeting with a client this week, and one of the things that we've done for a long time is talk to clients about long-term care. And she asked me about that. She said, "Are we going to, talk about long-term care?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "By the way, I noticed, you work with this financial advisor. Has he ever, talked to you about long-term care at all? Do you know anything about it?" Nope, he's never brought it up. And that's the kind of thing that I see. I mean, the planning that people are getting is not holistic. It's just about like, give me your assets. Let me manage your assets. I'm not really concerned about everything else. And in addition to that, one of the big things that happens with estate plans is they fail. So I've read a statistic that says like 70% of estate plans fail. And one of the big reasons for that is there's not good coordination of the assets with the plan. And, I can't tell you how many times I've done a plan for somebody. They went to the financial advisor who was supposed to take care of X, Y, and Z, and then it just didn't get done. Luckily in our reviews, we've caught that, but that's really what I want to address is those gaps that we're seeing in people's financial planning and the better coordination of the estate plan with the financial plan.
That's why a one-stop shop type of a system will really help a client because there's no miscommunication. Everything is streamlined in one direction, so it leaves much less room for a margin of error.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we've really made an effort over the years to team up with financial advisors or CPAs, and I find it rarely works. You can't. Everybody's got their own little turf they're trying to protect. And I mean, I haven't found that to be a good experience. So that's what's led me to this new venture.
Wonderful. We've been on that path now for, we've had an SEC registered investment advisory firm now for 11 years. And I can definitively say that having an integrated approach to planning is in the client's best interest, and and I think that you're on the right path to helping your clients do a lot of that. And I'm excited to see what you do with it.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of maybe some time that you've helped clients generationally, both by combining the legal and the financials together?
Yeah, I think some of the things that Mike said, just on a very basic level, making sure that what the estate plan called for is actually put through on the financial end of things is important. There's so many different examples. I can think of one example. We meet with a family where we've been managing it now. It's the second generation that we manage money for them. I remember the father vetted me out years ago to make sure that I was going to help the family do well, not only in the estate planning, but also in the financial side of it. And since then, we've been able to grow the accounts substantially. But more importantly, we have a yearly meeting to review with, he's passed on since, but we review the meeting. We have a review meeting with the 4 kids, the mom. We've been able to do a lot of Roth conversions. So all of the money that they're getting is actually in very tax advantage accounts. We've been able to do all kinds of gifting for the kids. They've been able to set up IRA accounts that are also tax advantage. And so being able to help them in a integrated approach to do and to look at it with the lens of looking at the estate planning, looking at the financial plan, making sure that everything works together, tax planning involved in there as well. That's really, I think, has been key for that family. And I think that in your practice, you'll be doing a lot of that where you're going to integrate those two aspects, and it'll be, I'm excited to see what you do with it.
Yeah. And one of the things, Roth conversions is something that, I've talked to many clients about, and I'll say, hey, this is something you want to look into, talk to your CPA, talk to your financial advisor, and it just kind of dies on the vine. I don't understand why, more people.
Nobody is there to execute it, and really needs to be. And
yeah.
So,
especially in that time between retirement and RMD age, when the income drops and they're in such a low tax bracket, they don't even pay any money, very little minimal amounts of taxes on it.
Yeah. So that's right. There's often in our practice, we're seeing clients that have just recently retired. Their income takes a lull before they start taking Social Security and RMD distributions. And that would be a great time to do some tax planning for them to be able to convert those funds that they have in qualified accounts into Roth IRAs.
Yeah.
And so we're certainly doing a lot of that. It's been a good strategy to help these clients do that.
That's a huge benefit to your clients.
Yeah.
Something we pride ourselves in is not only do we try and help clients, increase their portfolios, but we try and decrease their tax burden. And I feel like that's something to very importantly consider as well, because if you're just focusing on increasing the portfolio value, you're missing a huge opportunity to save the client money as well.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mike, we want to thank you very much for joining us on this podcast. It's been a pleasure, and we hope to check in with you sometime in the future.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, guys. And I'm excited about what you're doing with the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.